The lobby was busy, but no one looked at him. Two senior managers passed by, speaking just loudly enough to be heard. They really hired him for the front desk. One of them said with a smirk, "Looks like he couldn't tell a fax from a toaster." They laughed as they walked away. Never breaking stride, he remained where he was, standing behind the reception desk, hands calmly sorting a stack of mail that had already been sorted twice. A pen had rolled off the counter. He picked it up and placed it back in the tray without a word. No one thanked him. No one noticed. To them, he wasn't a person. He was just the guy at the desk. Another uniform, another task doer, someone whose name they wouldn't remember. But he heard everything. The tone, the disregard, the way they spoke like no one worth listening was in the room. And he didn't speak up. Not yet. He just kept working, kept listening. Because what he was starting to feel wasn't confusion. It was confirmation. Confirmation that something was deeply off. Not in the numbers, not in the reports. In the people. In the air. And by the end of the day, he wouldn't be asking whether something was wrong. He'd be wondering how long it had been this way. And how he'd failed to see it. Langston sat in his corner office, surrounded by a multitude of awards and elegant furniture. The view of the Easton Heights skyline outside his window typically filled him with pride. But today it felt hollow. He stared at the employee satisfaction report on his desk, his brow furrowed with concern. How had things gone so wrong without him noticing? There was a shocking 15% drop in employee satisfaction for the third month in a row at one of his offices in Oregon. Additionally, there had been numerous complaints about a toxic culture, favoritism, and potential racism. These were the red flags that prompted Aegis Dynamics CEO, Langston Ward, to take drastic action, disguising himself as a receptionist. He set out to see his company through the eyes of his employees. The decision to go undercover as a receptionist was not an easy one for Langston. He was fully aware of the risks involved. If discovered, it could lead to a PR disaster and damage the trust within the company. But as he put on the standard issue uniform and adjusted his fake mustache, a spark of hope ignited. This was his chance to uncover the truth and set things right. What would he learn by blending into the background of his own company? Only time would tell. His sharp suit and polished Oxfords, the symbols of his authority in the boardroom, were now replaced by a standard uniform and scuffed shoes. As he walked into Aegis Tower, building he had once ruled from the top floor, he experienced an odd mix of anticipation and fear. This was his company, his vision brought to life. But today he was a mere outsider, invisible, unremarkable, just another face in the crowd. The weight of the telephone and the continuous tasks of answering calls and greeting visitors felt foreign to Langston. When he looked at his reflection in the lobby's glass doors, he saw not the confident CEO, but a man who appeared unsure and out of place. No one met his gaze or recognized his presence, which struck him with a jolt of realization. His first task was to manage the busy front desk. As he handled phone calls and dealt with visitors, he overheard two senior managers chatting nearby. "Did you see the latest email about the new efficiency measures?" One asked. "Yeah, just what we needed. More work for less pay. The customer service team is already overworked." "Well, it's not our problem. Let HR handle the complaints. We've got more important things to focus on." The casual disregard for employee concerns hit Langston like a physical blow. Had he, in any way, supported this kind of attitude? As the managers walked away, still unaware of his true identity, Langston felt a growing discomfort in his stomach. Throughout the day, Langston struggled with tasks he had always taken for granted. The switchboard seemed to have a mind of its own, and he found it hard to keep up with the flow of visitors. But it wasn't just the physical challenges that weighed on him. It was the emotional toll of realizing how unconcerned the management had become. In the break room, as he refilled coffee mugs, he overheard his management team discussing the state of the company. Their conversation filled with frustration and a dismissive attitude toward the low-level employees. One of them even insulted the customer service team and threw in a few curse words while at it. The others listened and laughed at the situation, while Langston felt a surge of shame and anger. These were the people he had entrusted with his vision, expecting them to lead with integrity and empathy. Instead, they seemed entrenched in a culture of elitism and disregard for the staff who kept the company running. As the day ended, Langston found an unexpected ally in Marcy, a seasoned receptionist who patiently showed him the ropes. During their break, she shared a knowing smile and said, "It's just a job, but don't expect anyone up there to notice us. To them, we're invisible." Her words hit Langston like a gut punch. He had always prided himself on running a company where every employee felt valued and their hard work was recognized. Marcy's blunt observation painted a very different picture. By the end of his shift, Langston's body was tired from the demands of the job, but the real struggle was in his mind. As he removed his uniform and looked at himself, the face staring back was weary. But more than that, it was the face of someone who had just been confronted with an uncomfortable truth. He had started this undercover assignment to gain insight into his company's operations and find areas for improvement. Instead, he had uncovered an ugly culture of disrespect that cut to the core of the organization he had built. The next day, Langston continued his role as a receptionist, hoping for a different experience. The busy office environment was a stark contrast to his usual executive suite, and once again, he observed the employees around him quietly. Among the faces he recognized was Savannah, a key member of the Oregon management team. Langston had been told by his board members that she was a valuable asset, known for her efficiency and no-nonsense approach to business. However, as the day progressed, he began to notice a disturbing pattern in Savannah's behavior. Her interactions with lower-level employees were very different from the professional way she was portrayed. She spoke harshly, her words filled with insults, and her body language exuded an air of superiority that made Langston uncomfortable. The turning point came when Savannah marched up to him, her eyes sweeping over the front desk. "Is this seriously how you're handling things?" she said, letting out an annoyed sigh. "I've never seen such a disaster at the front desk. Papers everywhere, phones ringing off the hook, and you can't even answer them on time. No wonder this place is falling apart. It's because you people can't even do the basics right." "You people?" Langston thought to himself. What did that even mean? He felt a wave of anger as her words cut deep. He had always believed in building a respectful and positive work culture, but here was one of his senior managers tearing into him over his receptionist duties. The harshness in her tone and the way she belittled the role was difficult to relate to. As Savannah turned and walked away, Langston stood in disbelief, his heart clenched. Nearby, Jared, a kind-hearted IT worker, exchanged a look with a colleague and said, "Don't think too much about it. That's just the way she acts." The weight of Jared's words hit Langston like a physical blow. Not only was Savannah's behavior unacceptable, but it was also a regular occurrence. The realization that this toxic culture had developed under his leadership filled him with a sense of betrayal and failure. Throughout the rest of the day, Langston became acutely aware of the interactions around him. He noted how some employees seemed to shrink into themselves when Savannah approached, while others adopted a defensive stance. The atmosphere of fear and resentment hung thick in the air. Langston couldn't help but wonder how his team had missed these signs for so long. Observing Savannah's interactions with other department heads, he began to see a pattern emerge. She presented a polished, professional image to those she deemed important, yet she treated those she saw as beneath her with disrespect. This two-faced behavior not only damaged employee morale but also undermined the company's overall productivity and success. The stark contrast between Savannah's public persona and her true nature left Langston feeling betrayed. The senior teams had trusted her with a lot of responsibilities. He had believed her to be a reflection of the values he thought should be at the company. Now he was forced to confront the reality that his team's judgment had been deeply flawed. As the day ended, Langston couldn't stop thinking about what he had observed. The problems in this office were bigger than he had realized. It wasn't just one manager's bad behavior. It was a deep issue that had grown under his watch. However, during his undercover role, he discovered something surprising. Aegis Dynamics' greatest assets were hiding in plain sight. The busy office floor was filled with hardworking employees, their faces showing both determination and stress. From his spot at the reception desk, Langston began to notice patterns in people he had overlooked before. Who employees stood out? Naomi, a senior accountant, and Jared from the IT department. At first, they seemed ordinary, just another part of the team. But as Langston observed them, he saw something extraordinary in their daily actions. Naomi was often the first to arrive and the last to leave. Her dedication was clear as she focused intently on financial reports. One evening, as the office cleared out and the cleaning staff began their rounds, Langston overheard a conversation that struck him. "Naomi, you're still here?" A colleague asked, surprised. Naomi looked up and explained that she was just finishing the quarterly reports that needed to be perfect for the board meeting tomorrow. "But it's your daughter's recital tonight, right?" A look of pain crossed Naomi's face. But she said that she would make it up to her this weekend. As the colleague left, Langston felt a pang of guilt. He had no idea of the sacrifices his low-level employees were making while those at the top acted almost abusively. Jared, on the other hand, was a source of positivity in a stressful environment. Langston saw him moving from desk to desk, solving technical issues with a patient smile. It wasn't just his IT skills that impressed Langston. It was how Jared lifted everyone's spirits. One day, Langston witnessed a touching scene. A new intern was struggling with a broken computer, tears of frustration in her eyes. Jared approached her gently and said that they would figure it out together. For the next hour, Jared stayed with her. They managed not only to fix the problem but also to teach the intern basic troubleshooting skills. His kindness was evident in every interaction. As the days passed, Langston saw Naomi and Jared as more than just employees. They were hidden pillars of Aegis dynamics, displaying the hard work, dedication, and compassion he wanted in his company. With this realization came a troubling thought. Why hadn't the team noticed their great qualities before? He recognized that the problem lay with the company structure he had created and the fact that he had become less involved. One afternoon, Langston overheard Naomi talking to a coworker. "I've been passed over for promotion 3 times now," she said, sounding frustrated. "I work really hard, but it feels like you're invisible unless you're in the right social circle." Her words hit Langston hard. He had always believed that hard work should be rewarded. Perhaps the culture at Aegis Dynamics was hindering its best employees from advancing. Jared's situation was different but equally concerning. Despite his expertise and valuable people skills, he remained in a junior role, his potential untapped. Langston watched Jared handle a crisis that should have been a higher-level task. Wondering how many other employees were in the same boat, Langston continued his undercover work for a week, and by the end, he confronted a deep realization. Aegis Dynamics was filled with hidden talents, like Naomi and Jared, employees whose skills and dedication far surpassed their current roles. The amount of potential within his company was staggering. Now, Langston had to tackle a new challenge: how to create a culture that genuinely recognized and cared for talent at all levels. How could he ensure that dedication and skill were acknowledged, irrespective of social connections or visibility? Langston decided to call an emergency meeting with his board and senior management team. He entered the boardroom as Langston Ward, the CEO, with a clear and focused purpose. The team looked at him with a mix of surprise and curiosity, unaware of the full extent of what Langston had discovered. "Thank you all for coming on short notice." Langston began, his tone serious. "I want to address some serious issues that have come to light. Over the past week, I've been undercover within the company, and what I've seen has been both eye-opening and concerning." He paused, allowing the weight of his words to sink in. The senior managers exchanged uneasy glances. Langston continued, "Our company is facing a crisis. Employee satisfaction has dropped by 15%, and I found that our culture is not what we intended. There is widespread favoritism and a lack of recognition for hard work and talent." Savannah, one of the managers Langston had observed closely, shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Langston noted her discomfort but remained focused on his message. "We need to address these issues head-on. I've witnessed extraordinary dedication from employees like Naomi and Jared, who are not receiving the recognition they deserve. Our current system is failing them and failing the company." Langston's words were met with a mix of defensive responses and silence. Some managers tried to justify their actions, while others appeared genuinely concerned. Langston knew that change would not come easily. He was determined to see it through. The first step was to establish a more transparent and fair system for promotions and recognition. Langston proposed a new framework where employee performance and contributions would be evaluated based on merit, not social connections. He also introduced regular feedback mechanisms to ensure that all employees had a voice and could report any issues they encountered. As Langston sat in his office reflecting on the necessary changes, an unexpected knock at his door jolted him from his thoughts. It was Savannah. "Mr. Ward," she began, her voice trembling. "There's something I need to confess. It's about the recent complaints regarding the toxic culture." Langston's heart raced. He had expected resistance, but not this level of fear. "Go on," he said, trying to maintain his composure. Savannah took a deep breath. "We've been manipulated. There's something you need to know about the complaints and the drop in employee satisfaction. It wasn't just internal issues. There was someone working against us. Someone who has been feeding misinformation and stirring up trouble from the outside." Before Langston could respond, Savannah's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, her face going pale. "Oh no," she announced. "It's happening again." She handed Langston her phone, showing him a video feed from a hidden security camera in the general office. The footage was disturbing. An unidentified figure in a black hoodie and mask was in the office, approaching each employee's booth and threatening them, using their personal secrets to manipulate them. The figure seemed eerily familiar. "Who is that?" Langston asked, confused. Savannah shook her head. "I don't know, but they've been making people act badly. They've been threatening employees with their personal secrets, forcing them to mess things up or face exposure." Langston's mind raced. If Savannah was right, then the problems at Aegis Dynamics weren't just internal, they were being sabotaged from the outside. As Langston tried to process this new information, another knock sounded at the door. A tall man in a suit entered, carrying a briefcase. Langston recognized him immediately. It was Ronan Callahan, a well-known investigator who handled major fraud cases. "I'm here because I got an anonymous tip," Ronan said firmly. "I believe someone is sabotaging your company. The person behind this has detailed knowledge of your operations and is using it to cause chaos." Ronan's words only deepened the mystery. Langston remembered recent company decisions and began to see a pattern. But who had the motive and means to pull off such a scheme? Ronan opened a file and showed Langston the evidence. "We traced the sabotage to a former employee who was let go under suspicious circumstances last year. They've been holding a grudge and using their knowledge to disrupt your company." Langston felt a chill. The former employee was a senior analyst who had access to sensitive data and knew Aegis Dynamics inside out. "We also discovered a network of accomplices," Ronan continued. "They've been using personal secrets to control and manipulate employees. It's all part of a plan to undermine your leadership and ruin the company's reputation." Langston realized that the problems at Aegis Dynamics were much bigger than he initially thought. The company was under attack in a way that made it appear as though the leadership was failing. But the real trouble was hidden. Together with Ronan, Langston began investigating what was really going on. They uncovered further proof that a former employee was behind the acts of sabotage, with others assisting them. It turned out that the person behind the sabotage was someone Langston had trusted deeply, a former executive named Desmond Crane, who had been causing trouble to get back at Langston and try to take over the company. This discovery led to serious confrontations and legal issues. To address everything, Langston took decisive action. Some employees, like Savannah, had been complicit in causing trouble and hiding the problems. They had mistreated their co-workers and remained silent about the sabotage that was harming the company. Langston first called Savannah and others involved into meetings to present evidence of their misconduct. Savannah was informed that she was being punished for her mistreatment of others and for concealing what was happening. Langston made it clear that such behavior was unacceptable. Savannah and the others faced significant consequences. They were suspended for a period and required to take special training on proper workplace behavior. They also had to apologize to their teams for the chaos they had caused. Langston wanted to ensure that everyone understood the serious repercussions for breaking the rules and failing to be honest. On the flip side, Langston sought to reward the honest and hardworking employees. Naomi stood out for her dedication. She received a promotion and a raise in recognition of her hard work and sacrifices. Jared, who had been supportive and uplifting, was given a new role leading the IT team, along with a salary increase and more influence in key decisions. Langston wanted to ensure that Jared's skills and positive attitude were properly appreciated. To prevent future problems, Langston introduced new rules for everyone at Aegis Dynamics. These included regular meetings for employee feedback, better avenues for reporting problems, and greater recognition of hard work. Langston aimed to be more active and visible, fostering a workplace that was fair and supportive, where everyone felt valued and encouraged. By implementing these changes, Langston hoped to resolve existing issues and make Aegis Dynamics a better place to work. He was committed to rebuilding trust and ensuring that every employee had the opportunity to succeed and find happiness at work. As Langston gazed out at the Easton Heights skyline, he felt the weight of the past few days lift. The crisis had tested him in ways he hadn't anticipated, but had also strengthened his resolve to lead Aegis Dynamics with renewed focus and a deeper understanding of the threats within his organization.